What it do? We are here for our Saturday night secret sermon. This is one of my favorite segments of the week, Secret Teachings of Jesus. Every Saturday night around midnight, we have our deep study in the Gnostic Gospels. We are in the Nag Hammadi scriptures, currently studying from the Gospel of Thomas. And so just to give you a little bit of context about the structure of the Gospel of Thomas. So some Gospels have more of like a scene that plays out, and there's dialogue and people talk to one another and they go places and they do things. This is not that kind of a gospel. Both the Gospel of Thomas and the Gospel of Philip, which we spent a year and a half in, if you are interested in this esoteric material, I loved the Gospel of Thomas, and we took each portion episode by episode for like a year and a half in Philip. So I highly recommend Philip. The Gospel of Thomas is very similar to Philip. So Philip had these like cryptic portions of text. They're like about a paragraph that you would kind of meditate upon. They were mysterious and esoteric and lofty, very symbolic. And they were ideas and parables and symbolism and imagery that Jesus used a lot and is used a lot through the Bible and through the biblical writings in general. So it was really nice to take those ideas and flesh them out and unpack them. So the Gospel of Thomas is very similar, although whereas in Philip there were like titled portions, the Gospel of Thomas is like more like sayings, like things Jesus said, statements he made. And these are much shorter, and so they're only numbered. They are also meant to be understood as being in perpetual present tense because Jesus is a living God and his words were living words. Although for like comfort of reading's sake, they translated these in past tense. But that was something that was noted in the introduction. All right. So last week we talked about a pretty straightforward statement. Oh, and another thing about the Gospel of Thomas is that it doesn't talk about like where Jesus went and what he did or the miracles that he performed or that he was crucified and resurrected. This is mostly just focused on his teachings and things that he taught and ideas that he conveyed. So in saying number 17, we covered this last week, and it's always the really straightforward seeming ones that you're like, well, I guess we can just kind of say this in a few sentences and that'll be it, right? And then it's always like a 2-part episode, and each episode's like an hour. But after last week, I thought we covered a lot of interesting like side topics, and we went into a lot of depth, but there were a couple of things that I didn't get around to covering, and I thought I wanted to go back and just finish up. And then somebody brought up a really interesting comment, and I thought, oh, okay, well we're going to go back and do a part 2. So, bearing in mind that last week's episode was, it was entitled, What No Eye Shall See, or What No Eye Has Seen. And so this will be part 2 of What No Eye Has Seen. And so we're covering saying 17. So if you feel like when you're listening to this episode, you're like, you're not saying all this other stuff. If you feel like I'm leaving anything out, just remember we did like a 45-minute or so episode last week that we might have covered the material. And then, the thing about the depth of scripture is that it can mean so many things sometimes. All right. So here we are. Okay, so the saying. Jesus said, this is saying number 17 in the Gospel of Thomas. We're really starting this time. Jesus said, I shall give you what no eye has seen, what no ear has heard, and what no hand has touched. What has not arisen in the human heart. Sorry, I was just reading a note that I'd written along the side of I was like, I wonder if this is, okay. Jesus said, I shall give you what no eye has seen, what no ear has heard, what no hand has touched, and what has not arisen in the human heart. So we went into a lot of depths last week, but I just wanted to make sure that I covered some basic things as well. So Jesus came at a point in the history of the Hebrew people where, if we look back at the Bible as a whole, we see that the Jewish faith grew in stages of evolution through these covenants, right? It was like God would circle back with the people and reconvene and then bring a new covenant, right? So at Moses' time, it was like about rule, like Jewish law and governing the comings and goings of life and giving people a moral code to live by. And there were depths hidden within the Torah, mysteries hidden within the Torah, but it would take mankind ages before they could gradually evolve to be able to start to unearth these mysteries and hidden secrets in the Torah, and also to be able to have the consciousness to then be transformed and live by these. There's a lightning bug on my blinds. So over time, there was, the destruction of the first temple. And with that, it was like the destruction of the first covenant. And then there was the second temple. And there were, expounded upon ideas and understandings at that time. And then again, the temple was destroyed because of, every time it was destroyed, it had to do with the tikkun, the collective tikkun that the Israelites had been bringing through maybe their inability to keep unity and keep alignment with the faith. And they would break that covenant in these ways. And it would also be around the time that it would be time for everything to have a nice catalyst for evolution again. So fast forward to the coming of Jesus. We've had these different stages and phases where we had the Torah, right? The basic law of Moses that was given. And then over a long period of generations, there were the writings and the prophets that were addressing the struggles of the time, but they were foretelling of the coming of a Messiah, a coming of a different time, a different consciousness, a different leader. And they didn't quite understand what this was. They were still pretty much hung up on the material idea of a Davidic king that would come and, overcome the Roman Empire, and they would be, living in happiness in an abundant, prosperous, life or whatever as a people again, like reigning in glory. But that was still just so limited because it's only material. How long is that possibly going to last, right? Like a couple of generations of people at longest, if the king were to live, however long. So they were still limited in their perception of who the Messiah was going to be and what role they were going to serve. Like even while Jesus was here, it was like people kept being like, okay, when are we going to take over the government? And he was like, this is not what we're here to do. I'm revealing to you a different kind of kingdom, a heavenly kingdom. And so in that sense, Jesus is giving them, the people, this new understanding, right? When Jesus came on the scene, it's like, okay, we've had the writings and the prophets and all that, the Psalms and the Song of Songs and the poetry that has been, hinting around at this wisdom. And little did the mainstream know that there was a deeper wisdom that was being handed down orally in secret that uncovered the deeper meanings of the Torah below the surface of the day-to-day operational laws and moral code. There was a deeper wisdom and a deeper message hidden beneath the surface level stories. They were encoded in these images, and all the characters in the Torah represent aspects of ourself and aspects of us and how we relate to the greater cosmos. So sometimes the characters in the Torah represent negative angels that challenge us and that we have to be at war with, right? And sometimes the characters of the Torah represent parts of ourselves. Usually all the Israelites are representing aspects of our ego, of our personality. They're like archetypes. And then the people who are like enemies of the Israelites, they're usually like the outer forces that we as each individual are dealing with all the time. Our negative thoughts, the constant challenges of life. All of these things that are being organized by the negative angels that are here to be the antagonists of our story. So Jesus comes in and he has like a twofold teaching. For the general public, he is preaching for the first time, telling people of this merciful God who loves them and who wants to have a personal one-on-one relationship. The people at this point had been going through the temple and they had been going through their clergy in order to make sacrifice and to make connections and to make their prayers known. There was always some sort of like middleman. And when Jesus came, he presented a covenant where God wanted to be intimately connected with each one of us. And so when you look at, was it Jacob? Isaac sent his servant to find a wife for Jacob at the well, the water well. And so the servant went looking for the perfect woman and he found her at this well, right? And so in that story, in the time of Abraham and Isaac, their covenant with God was not so one-on-one, right? There was an intermediary there. There was space there. The servant went to the well to find the wife. But when we get into the New Testament, when Jesus comes into the scene, one of the first things Jesus does is he goes to Samaria and he meets the woman by the well directly, and he tells her that he's the Messiah. He brings up the fact that she's been married like several times before, and they didn't work out. So this is the same story again, but this time Jesus doesn't go. First of all, there's no servant sent. Instead, it's the king is coming directly to find his bride. And unlike before, when it was very legalistic, that first covenant, when, they were sending the servant to find the most perfect wife, the most perfect, pious, beautiful object of a woman. They were looking for the pristine, unsullied specimen. Alternatively, Jesus came directly. He did not send an intermediary. He was like, I want you. I want you messy. I want you with regrets. I want you with your mistakes. I want you directly. And we have a direct marriage that's going to be happening here. Because when we see the well in scripture, it represents an alchemical marriage of the soul and the spirit. And the spirit being married to the creator, and the creator's spirit being joined with his bride, the Shina, the bride of Christ, the bride of God, the Torah. And so Jesus was bringing a next level of consciousness with his ministry. These were things that no one had seen or heard before. Their hearts had not been exposed to these ideas. They were kind of self-contained. They were kind of, it wasn't, yes, it was treat your neighbor as yourself, but the radical forgiveness, the radical grace, the radical acceptance involved was something unheard of. Because up until this point, we had the moral code we're all living by, but there wasn't, it wasn't even that all Jewish people, all the schools of thought believed in the afterlife. Some of the Jewish people believed in the afterlife, some of them didn't. So it just depended on where you fell in those denominations there. So Jesus was bringing something completely unfamiliar to the Jewish people who were, they were godly people and they believed in God. They believed in things they couldn't see. They believed in angels, but they were still materialistic in their understanding. And so, when Jesus is talking about, I'm here to bring a kingdom, they really literally were taking him literally. They were like, oh, okay, so you're going to be the new king and you're going to rule and we're going to be your people. And he kept trying to tell them, no, the kingdom that I am giving you is within. And he is teaching people how to cultivate inner peace and that ability to hear that inner voice of God when God's talking to us, or the Spirit of God, the Shina. How to go into that bridal chamber within and meet that voice and connect with that voice and hear it clearly and have the confidence to follow that guidance and have the discernment to know when it's your ego talking and when it's your heart talking. And if you have corrected the heart enough so that it's not distorted, right? It's like tuning a piano. And so there's a process to this. And so Jesus was bringing something all new, and it was something beyond what anyone had ever been involved with before in this faith. It wasn't just bringing, a perfect lamb for slaughter at Passover and, participating in these quarterly, holy holidays. It was like there was something more, something that was asking for a personal relationship and a personal transformation on the inside, which we, talk about Tikkune Olam, the correction of the soul. This is a process that takes place. And so in Judaism, like in Christianity, we are not brought up to believe in reincarnation. I'm not sure how the Catholics approach reincarnation, but as a Southern Baptist, that was New Age. But Jewish people, or at least in Kabbalah, totally believe in reincarnation. That's like the whole point, is that we come again and again and again. And even Jesus alludes to it, and John the Baptist does, when John the Baptist is like, people say I'm a prophet. Everybody thinks I'm Elijah. And Jesus is like, well, I don't know if you're the actual Elijah, but that's the thing. Like, people have, the patriarchs have been reincarnated into new patriarchs before, or prophets come back as this person or whatever. So it's kind of alluded to, but it's one of those messy things that the Christian church doesn't like to deal with because it's not orderly. And I just ordered the Ethiopian Bible, y'all. I bought one, but I wasn't sure if it was one of the, if it was official, or if it's one of those knockoffs that still has sections missing. And so I happened to see, sometimes I really like targeted commercials, but so I saw a commercial for what looked like a good quality Ethiopian Bible. So I was like, okay, cool. I'll order that one too. It's not $1 million, so I'll go ahead and order it. But anyway, Can't wait to get into the Ethiopian Bible because it's got all the missing books that talk about a lot of the esoteric, far out, angels, different beings, creatures, all the stuff from like the really ancient times that got left out of the canonical Bible. So I'm excited. I wish I had endless hours to read, but so I'm doing it all on camera so we can share it together. So Jesus said, I shall give you what no eye has seen. I will give you what no ear has heard and what no hand has touched, what has not arisen in any human heart. And so the Tikkune Olam correction. So long story short, so Adam and Eve were like the seed souls of all mankind, Adam particularly. And so when Adam and Eve fell, they lost these sparks of light. These sparks of light got scattered and they got sort of commandeered by the negative side. And these sparks of light were like our spark of light from God. And it was all of those sparks of light that allowed us that full memory of the wholeness of the full fulfillment of like who we are as like divine and human and totally connected with God and remembering fully who God is, so we don't worry about anything, everything's fine, everything's groovy. Then those sparks of light got spilled out and they got taken by the adversary, by the male and female Satan. So they got all this extra light that belongs to us, part of our soul. And so I think it was like 200 and something sparks of light, or 188, or I can't remember. There was a specific number. And so all of humankind, all of our incarnations were collectively trying to capture back those sparks of light that we lost in that original fall, because all of our souls have splintered off from those original souls. So we were all a part of that. It was like DNA, all of our history. So Tikkun is the soul correction, where you are recapturing your assigned sparks of light, like your allotted sparks of light for you. You go through these challenges in this life to go against your easy inclination to overcome, and then you reveal the fullness of your soul through your conscious evolution, your heart healing, your soul correction. And so we're collectively doing this all together. And there's, you see my little scales over there in the background. You might not be able to see them super well, but I always use these as a reminder of the cosmic scales, right? And so we're always trying to get the scales to weigh heavy on the side of mercy, on the side of light. So when we do a boo-boo and we have a short circuit, we might spill out more light. We might lose those sparks. But when we overcome our darkness, we get those sparks back. You know, it's kind of like Brene Brown talks about the trust jar. And she's like, imagine trust is like a jar of marbles. And she suggests you even might have one in your house. But someone, every time they do something that builds a little trust with you, it's like you put some marbles in the jar. But when they do something that breaks your trust, it's like marbles come out of the jar. And the amount of marbles that come out of the jar are like proportionate to the boo-boo kind of thing. Same way that we're earning and losing sparks of light, coming and going. So it's like every lifetime we're incarnate, we are trying to recapture the sparks of light while also continuing to lose them with our fresh mistakes. So the wages of sin is death. In the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve lived in a world of light. It was in a light realm. It was in the dimension that's just on the other side of this one. It was not in this material world. In this material world, there is decay, there's death, sickness, things break down. But in the world of light, in the Garden of Eden, it's perfect paradise. Nothing dies. It's eternal. It's eternal life, eternal light. So when we were in the Garden of Eden, we were living in the consciousness of the tree of life. But when we ate of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, we fell into the world of death and taxes and menstrual cramps and toiling over our bread. We came to a world of punching a clock and earning a check. It is material, it is death. And sin is just missing the mark, being not in our right state of consciousness, being in a diluted or like a contaminated state of consciousness. Let's put it that way. So our contaminated state of consciousness took us out of the world of immortality and into the world of death. So the wages of sin is death. So it's like the more negativity, we started to realize this with science, like the more negativity is around a person, it makes their body sick, right? You can, and like it brings calamity around them, right? You know, that kind of negative person or that chaotic person who's always like having like one thing after another, and then like the person who's like super negative and they're always getting sick and they don't know why, or they like develop a tumor because your bitterness, like, everybody else knows it but them, right? Wages of sin is death, right? So when Jesus said, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, for whosoever believeth him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. I mean, not Jesus didn't say this, but he's like saying it about himself. But like, basically, when you believe in Jesus, beyond just the straightforward, like, I'm saved, I got baptized, it's a one and done, and now I'm good to go to heaven. Like, that's the, I guess, fast food Christian, I got saved, they baptized me in a kiddie pool kind of thing. But I think that, I mean, when you look at Jesus's disciples, right, and people who I think what Christ imagined his followers would be devoted students and apprentices that would take on the discipleship, the discipline of Christ consciousness, that they would change from the inside out and become different people. And so the path of Christ consciousness is on this tree of life here. It's straight up the middle. In the heart center. So the central column here is the path of consciousness, and the Christ consciousness is here. So this is elevating our soul. So when we adopt Christ consciousness and we start to actually transform our darkness and we die to those aspects of the soul and we peel off like all that residue, we reveal those sparks of light, we're rising up, we're ascending. And so that becoming saved is more than just saying, I want Jesus in my heart, I'm going to get baptized, I'll go to church sometimes and never think of it again. It's allowing that transformation to start happening in this miraculous way on the inside, and it elevates you, and it changes the way that you think, and it changes the way that you feel, and it changes the way that you see things, the way you see the world and the way you see others. You don't become a saint overnight. I'm still pretty hostile all the time. I've tried to do this my whole life. But eventually, it's like gradually. And so I can do all things that through Christ who strengthens me. And so God loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him. And it's not just believeth, but do you think like him? Do you act like him? Do you try to take on Christ's beliefs, Christ's thoughts, Christ's actions? Like, consciousness is like it umbrellas over so many things. Consciousness, it informs your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your perceptions, your beliefs, your behaviors. So Jesus said, I shall give you what no eye has seen, and what no ear has heard, what no hand has touched. He's giving us ideas and consciousness and liberating our spirit. And it's not something that anyone can see, feel, hear, or touch. And honestly, it's something that all the ideas that he was putting out there were things that people had not discussed. It was new. It was heretic. It was bold and risky and dangerous. Jesus was very dangerous to the status quo. He was not a rule follower. People, their caricature of Jesus is the Jesus they want him to be when they want to manipulate you. Oh, they want you to think Jesus was a nice rule follower, very polite, always did, minded his manners and did. Well, you know what? Jesus was getting in trouble all the time by the people in charge and the people in pious positions. And he was pissing off people's parents and, getting kicked out of church. So, he was creating good trouble. He wasn't being rebellious for the sake of lavish luxury, and debauchery. He was shaking things up for good, right? And we see all of that, happening now and, all over the world right now. But we are living in the generation of Mashiach, which is, when you look at the 6,000 year calendar, there is 2,000 years of there's these 2,000 years was in the beginning, and then there was the writings and the prophets. There was that second 2,000 years, and then the third 2,000 years is the revelation of the Mashiach, and then the concealment of Mashiach over the generation of Mashiach, which is the last 2,000 years. Well, according to this calendar, I think we have 240 years left or something. So things are extreme, because if we just came and had a nice little incarnation, we wouldn't see all the shit that we need to correct still, and that we've got to correct. There's only 240 years. So if you've had a life that's put you under a lot of pressure and a lot of intensity, it's because we kind of have to get a lot done over the next 240 years, because every knee shall bow, every tongue will confess. But it's about the correction. We're awakening, and we're exposing all of this greed and this corruption in the world and this perversion. And it's been festering for all this time. And it's the reason why it's so in our face now is because it's got to be dealt with. It's got to be wiped out. It's got to be corrected. It's got to be repaired. It's got to be healed. It's got to be transformed. It's got to be obliterated. So Jesus said, I shall give you what no eye has seen, what no ear has heard, and what no hand has touched, what has not arisen in the human heart. So he's bringing us this message. It's a new message. It's a new covenant. It's a new covenant. It's okay, we're at a new level, guys. Everything that we've gained up until now, it's we keep it and we bring it with us and we add this to it. So some people are how can you be both Jewish and Christian? What is that? And to me, it seems it's the obvious. It seems obvious. It feels like it's just the completion of a story that's all interconnected. It's okay, we had phase 1, we had the Torah. We have phase 2, which is the writings and the prophets. And then we've got phase 3, which is the New Testament and the Gnostic Gospels and all of those writings. And then we have the Kabbalah, and I think we touched on this a little bit last week, which is interesting because this was what my Kabbalah class was about this week. But the Kabbalah was a hidden wisdom buried within the Torah, but that's been given orally all of these generations, starting from the time of Adam. It's been here all along. It's when New Age people tap into the Akashic records. It's like that. It's even if generations and there were gaps where people couldn't orally pass this to this person or that person, and there was maybe breaks in the chains, the patriarchs, the prophets, they would tap in to this intelligence that was already there. It was the wisdom was already there. They didn't think of it or come up with it. It's just they tuned in and they were able to channel the information that was in the ethers, right? Channeling it through. that's how I do a lot of what I do, right? It's like I tap into a channel, I catch a signal, and then I start talking and I don't think. So the Kabbalah had been passed down orally in secret, given to maybe 1 or 2 people in each village, and 1 in a city and 2 in a village or whatever. And it finally got written down near the time of Jesus, but then even then it stayed into concealment because it was this depth of understanding that was too much for the people to be able to handle safely. They needed a more deeper consciousness, and this particular wisdom was to be saved until the generation of Mashiach. And so it was written down and kept safe, but it was actually resurfaced in the Dark Ages of Europe, in the 400s or so. It kind of resurfaced and started germinating and spreading a little bit. It was still rare, it was still secret, it was still difficult to study, but the wisdom started getting out there. And then in the 1900s it started to get more spread out more into the mainstream, and the wisdom that had been written down was then published, and it was becoming more available, more accessible, but still pretty rare. Even to this day, it's still fairly rare and fairly uncommon, although more people are kind of understanding it or becoming more familiar with it. And if you watch my channel, you're more familiar with it than you think, because a lot of my teachings are coming from the teachings of Kabbalah. So Jesus said, I shall give you what no eye has seen, what no ear has heard, and what no hand has touched, what has not arisen in the human heart. Now, I just want to read my side note here. It may not even be from this portion. So what does it say? The written Torah, Jesus is the word, the fulfillment of the written Torah. Fire is the written Torah. Jesus is the word, the fulfillment of the written Torah. So it might have been notes from another passage, but whatever. Enjoy. Okay, and so there was another point that I wanted to make. So the 2 things that I wanted to make, one was that accepting Jesus and actually coming to a point of Christ consciousness, it's not just, I accept Jesus in my heart and I got a baptism, but actually reaching the level of Christ consciousness through your correction, through your devotion, through your efforts, would get you off of the wheel of incarnation. So if those who believeth in me shall not perish but have everlasting life, it's like we keep coming here and dying, and then we keep coming here and dying, we keep coming here and dying, and when we're born we start dying, and it's like this cycle of incarnation, and it's just this cycle of death and death and death, the wheel of death. But when you reach that soul correction, when you've completed your tikkun, you're out of the recycling of lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. You get off of that wheel of death and you are delivered and liberated into eternal life. So you graduate from the endless cycle of incarnation. 1. 2, so the language, the Aramaic language, is written with Hebrew letters, right? But Hebrew language and Aramaic language are 2 distinct languages. It's like, for instance, French and Spanish and Italian, they're Romance languages, but they're all written in English letters, but they're different languages. So an Italian person might recognize certain words in Spanish because their root words are similar. Same for French people might recognize certain words in Spanish or Italian because maybe their root words are similar, but they're different languages. So too, Hebrew and Aramaic. these are two languages that use the Hebrew letters, but someone that just speaks Hebrew, like modern Hebrew language, and reads Hebrew, they would not necessarily understand a passage written in Aramaic, different language, but same Hebrew letters, right? Aramaic was the language that God gave us so that we could have a direct connection with him and bypass the angels. The language of Jesus was Aramaic. The language of the people around Jesus in Jesus' time was Aramaic. I know that they wrote some of the Gospels in Greek, but their language was Aramaic. Now, as a gift, like I said, God gave us the language of Aramaic to human beings so that we would have a way to get direct access to God and bypass the angels. The angels are sort of like cosmic cops and IRS agents. Like even your good angels that are here for you to be your guardian angels that are assigned to you, when you ask them for help, they have to kind of like look at your balance sheet and look at your spiritual bank account and realistically be like, okay, what kind of help can you merit? Because if we really help you out of this, like you're going to have some spiritual credit card interest tacked on to your bill. You're going to have to go through a process. You're going to have to get like a flat tire or something, or go through something annoying, or like, I don't know, have like an injury, or like there's going to be something that you're going to have to go through a process to pay for this. They're constantly asking, like, and so like the negative angels, they're always like prosecuting against you. They're like the prosecuting attorney, which by the way, oh my God, I got jury duty. I got called up for jury duty. Like what are realistic ways you could get out of this? Like, I do not want to pass judgment on someone. I mean, like, this is terrible. I don't want to go. I'm biased, but positively. I'm going to be too lenient. You can't use me. So the negative angels are like the prosecutors, and they're wanting you to get punished. They're wanting to like hold you back from your destiny. They're always trying to like push you, get in your way. Their job is to stop you, right? And their job is to be like, you were speeding. No, we're not going to let you off with a warning. So the negative angels, they're always like prosecuting against you. And so when you pray, you are giving your prayers over to the angels, and they take your prayers and they evaluate them and they take them where they need to go. Like you send out your prayer, it's like a mail. It's like mail. Then you give them to angels and be like, please don't have me audited. But if you are praying or speaking in Aramaic, you bypass the angels and you get a direct connection to God, and you get a merciful, like, you don't have like the IRS like being like, okay, well, by the way, I know she's asking you this, but did she already tell you about this thing she goes over here? Like, so you want to bypass the angels, okay? Now, someone did point out that this portion is also this is alluding to the prayer of Apostle Paul. So Apostle Paul was probably quoting Jesus when he had this prayer. Now, I have had a lot of beef with Paul because of some of the heinous anus things that have been said in his name in the New Testament. And I also found it alarming that Paul was a Pharisee who was like persecuting Christians, and then all of a sudden he had a change of heart one day, and he shows up like 50 years after Jesus, and he's like, Jesus gave me a whole new gospel. I was like, sus. This is sus. Oh, and so you had a vision, but like Mary Magdalene has a vision and she's completely discredited, but Paul has a vision, and suddenly it's like welcoming Paul with open arms. Well, what I've learned is that I had every reason to be suspicious of Paul, because a lot of the writings in the New Testament that are attributed to Paul were forged. to rein it in and keep women in check. So some of the books that are written, that are ascribed to Paul never wrote. They were like fraudulent things planted in to keep people in line and under control. And all the stuff about women being silent and submissive and not being able to hold positions of leadership in the church, all of that was like feloniously. That's not a word, but it seems like it should be. Like they were falsely put in. That someone forged Paul's name. This was a forgery, and it is known like in theology. So I'm not just making this up. And I wish I had written down all the books that are supposedly written by Paul that are not written by Paul. But just generally speaking, just going back and trying to apologize for some of the harsh times I have roasted Paul. Paul was done dirty, I guess, and they used his name and likeness, but some of the writings that were attributed to Paul were written after Paul's death. So Paul didn't say those things. Okay, so now I can be a little bit more nicer about Paul again. Okay, because Jesus had elevated all these women in his ministry. And so it wouldn't make sense that 50 years later, he'd be like, you know what, I've rethought things. Never mind. Let's go back to sucking. Like, you know, it just didn't make sense. See, trust your instincts. Okay, so the prayer of the Apostle Paul. Grant me your mercy, my Redeemer. Redeem me, for I am yours. I have come from you. You are my mind. Bring me forth. You are my treasury. Open for me. You are my fullness. Accept me. You are my rest. Give me incomprehensible perfection. I call upon you, you who exist and pre-existed, in the name exalted above every name, through Jesus Christ. Lord of lords, King of the eternal realms, give me your gifts with no regret, through the Son of humanity, the Spirit, the advocate of truth. Give me authority, I ask of you. Give healing for my body, since I ask you, through the preacher of the gospel. And redeem my eternal, enlightened soul and my spirit, and disclose to my mind the firstborn of the fullness of grace. Grant what eyes of angels have not seen, what ears of rulers have not heard, and what has not arisen in the human heart, which became angelic, made in the image of the animate God, when it was formed in the beginning. I have faith and hope, and bestow upon me your beloved, chosen, blessed majesty, the firstborn, the first begotten, the wonderful mystery of your house. For yours is power and glory, and praise and greatness forever and ever. So there's so much going on here that literally line for line talks about what we've been talking about in depth. So grant what angels have not seen and what the rulers have not heard. So the watchers and the rulers are like different levels of beings. There's different levels of angels, different types of angels, different levels of angels, different kind of military pecking ranks of angels. And some of them, like we said, are positive angels, and some of them are negative angels, and they're for the other side. And so this material world is complicated. It's obviously Jesus rules everything and God is in control, but the adversary has reign over the material world. And so there are malevolent beings watching and trying to manipulate and competing for our soul and our energy and our light. And so like we said, when Jesus, that the light and the wisdom that Jesus gives us protection and shelter from these beings, and it helps us bypass their traps. And even in the afterlife, the revelation of the soul that we reveal, and the wisdom that we reveal in this life, it like carries with our soul as we traverse the afterlife, and we have to cross these path keepers in the nether realms, right? So they're making reference to that, and how us as humans, we are actually above the angels, because the angels have almost a robotic consciousness. They're so programmed to do their job and to play their role and to serve the creator, even in if they're the role of the adversary, they're like, I'm serving the creator by being the adversary. I'm not going to question my role. Like they're in a one-track mind. They're almost robotic. So the angels don't exactly have free will, because they also have nothing hidden from them. So they can see the fullness of everything. So there's no test. There's no guessing game. There's no faith involved. They just see it all for what it is. And so they don't have to practice or exercise faith and trust and take a chance, not knowing the real if there's something back there, or if there's something real, behind the curtain or not, right? They see behind the curtain. But we're above the angels, because even though we're not as high functioning as the angels because of our confusion, because of our ego, the fact that we have free will and we have to overcome the ego makes us higher and potentially more powerful than the angels. They serve us. And so, but the negative angels, they don't want us to reveal that power. They don't want us to realize that power. They want to have dominion over us. They want to enslave us. They want to, keep us down and keep us simple. They don't want us to be true humans, quote, or fully human. They want us to be animal human, which is not awakened to our divinity, not awakened to the power of our thoughts and our words and our heart and our desire and our intent and our intention and our ability to co-create. And so, yes, so then there are, Jesus gives us something that they can't touch. And so we are, in that way, we're higher, more powerful than the angels, but they don't necessarily want us to be, or the adversaries don't want us to be. So I could probably go through this prayer like in depth for a whole episode, but there was just a couple of things I wanted to point out. So grant me your mercy, Redeemer, redeem me. So redeeming our soul from the other side, right? Those sparks of light that were lost. For I'm yours, I have come from you. So Jesus, when he died on the cross, he paid this blood price, this sacrifice for our souls. You are my mind, bring me forth. It opened up the gates of the heavenly realm so that we could ascend higher once we were beyond the material world. And because of the lower nature of the material world and the corruption of humankind, it like separated us so many times over the history of mankind, that the heavens had to ascend deeper into the heavens, because it's like the heavenly realms didn't want to be near the corruption and the contaminants of what was happening in the human corruption. You are my mind, bring me forth. So this is like our awakening of our consciousness and the elevation of our consciousness over time. It's like our mind gradually, when we awaken, we unfold, we kind of bloom like the 1,000-petaled lotus. You can't force it. It's not all at once, but it happens gradually. So over our lifetime and lifetimes, we are opening our mind and we are coming into being, and our soul is like coming into being, and we're beginning to blossom, right? The fullness of our soul is being brought out. So you are my mind, bring me forth. You are my treasury, open for me. And so that's one thing that we've been talking about recently over the last couple of weeks, that God is the ultimate source of everything. All the source of our provisions, our health, our wealth, our fulfillment, our gladness, our joy, our excitement in life, like everything that we go after in this material world, they're just vessels. They're just little sleeves. Whatever drug, whatever person, whatever purse or outfit or thing that we think is going to fill us up with the momentary excitement, all the fulfillment that we're really looking for is the fulfillment of the Creator. We just don't see it that way. We're just like, I want the ice cream cone. I want that leather jacket. I want that guy. I want the hot cop from the park. You know, we think, oh, wow, this is that we get really into the vessel, but really it's about the light. And the light is really from source, right? So you are my treasury, open for me. The source of all provision, the source of all protection, the source of everything, the source of that annoying thing that happened that you think is a curse that isn't. It's all coming from the light. You are my fullness, accept me. You are my rest, that peace that we can be in when we have certainty. That certainty is not, I will not have any problems and things are going to go my way. That certainty is, no matter what happens, no matter what shitstorm is going on in the simulation today, God is with me. God is by my side. God could be activated in any moment, and blessings and miracles can be channeled through me in any moment, as long as I keep my eye, tunnel vision on the Creator. You are my rest, give me incomprehensible perfection. Again, paradise, inner peace, inner rest that comes as the soul is perfected. When we shed the ego away, the ego is all our problems. The ego is, oh, I'm scared. Oh, what about this? I'm annoyed. That's not enough. That's not going to be enough. I'm not enough. They got more. The ego is all of our worries, all of our annoyances, all of our problems. Give me incomprehensible perfection. Perfect my soul. And when the soul is fully corrected, we are going to be in union with our spirit, the spirit that is unsullied, that is like our higher self, the confident, winning self that never had any trauma. Can you imagine? All right. And so I think we'll go into deeper analysis of the prayer of Apostle Paul in the future. But let's just reread our portion one last time before we call it a night. So 17, taught the Gospel of Thomas, saying number 17, Jesus said, I shall give you what no eye has seen, what no ear has heard, what no hand has touched, what has not arisen in the human heart. All right, you all, that is all for tonight. To next week, I think we have a really fun, saying to get into. I started to do that one tonight, and I was like, man, there's so much started flooding in to talk about, and I was like, nope, next week. We're going to do that one next week because it ties into a really deep course in Kabbalah that I am doing right now called 10 Luminous Emanations. And it's one of the hardest ones. But the idea that Jesus is talking about in this next line was literally the topic of conversation covered in the class that I listened to last. I think I'm going to re-listen to that one before next week. All right, y'all. Well, we will be back together tomorrow for our weekly energy oracle forecast. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to my nephew's birthday, and I'm working tomorrow night, so I'm sure that I won't film before work tomorrow. And yes, still working on the first, well, it's actually the second issue of my secret teachings on my Substack. And the reason why this one's taking so long is because whereas like when we read out of the Gospels, I can read and in real time give you guys like the flood of downloads and insights that are coming through. And I can do that faster than I can read, take notes, and then go back and memorize the notes and write a script and talk into camera and then still forget all the things. So that's why I give you my stream of consciousness, the downloads that I'm getting as we're reading this anyway. Because the wisdom isn't mine. I'm a channel, man. I'm a tube. I'm a vessel, right? It's true though. This particular episode that I'm working on, it sets up the whole foundation for our understanding going forward in our study. And so there are some technical aspects and there are some seemingly contradictory aspects, but they're more like layered and building. So it's been a thorough sort of research study project that's happened in the midst of having also like a really incredibly busy month. So I'm not a flake, and I'm being really hard on myself because this is making me feel like a flake because I didn't get this episode out as fast as I wanted. But I've got to tell myself, like, and we've all, if anybody's been following me for a while, I've literally done a video every day for years. So I'm not a flake. I just, I've got to get past this one kind of like clunky one, and then we'll be smooth sailing. I'm excited. I'm excited to get into it. I'm excited to start pumping out all kinds of new fun stuff. So I'll keep you guys informed about that. And until tomorrow, peace.